Right, we're on to chapter 2 of Deuteronomy, and Moses is still setting the context or the background to how they've got to where they are. Remember, Deuteronomy is kind of preparing them to go into the promised land. And in the recounting he's given, they're close to the point where they're going to go in. Not quite there yet, but they're close to it. So, at the beginning, he talks about them not taking various lands. Let's read from verse 4 in chapter 2. Give the people these orders. You are about to pass through the territory of your relatives and descendants of Esau, who live in Seir. They will be afraid of you, but be very careful. Do not provoke them to war, for I will not give you any of their land, not even enough to put your foot on. I have given Esau the hill country of Seir as his own. You to pay them in silver for food, for the food you eat and the water you drink. And it says that God has blessed you in all the work of your hands. He has watched over you in your journey through the vast wilderness. Now remember, they went through the wilderness because of their sin, because they refused to enter the promised land when they should have gone in. Well, even though they were through the wilderness, God still looked after them. And then it goes on with a bit about Lot. Let me just lost the. Yeah, we've got it here. I don't know why I couldn't see it. Then the Lord, in verse 9, then the Lord said to me, do not harass the Moabites or provoke them to war, for I will not give you any part of their land. I've given Ar to the descendants of Lot as a possession. So soon we'll get onto the land which God has given to them. But they're very clear here to areas where God has not given them land. And these beyond Edom and the Edomites and the Moabites, who in turn, Edom descended from Esau, and Moab from Lot. Now neither of these were good guys. Esau, remember, sold his inheritance for a bowl of soup, essentially, or broth or stew. And Lot, his family came out with the result of incest. I mean, neither of it's very edifying. But God had given them land. And there's land which Israel was not to take. They had to treat these people carefully. And then just a small point. Verse 13 says, now get up and cross the Zered Valley. So we cross the valley. If you read in it, that's in the NIV. If you read in the ESV, it says, cross the brook Zered. Now, literally, the ESV is correct. Or more correct. But this valley or brook was actually a wadi, which meant it only got wet. The river only flowed in certain times of the year. Most of the time it was dry. So the NIV is geographically more correct. But anyway, that's really neither here nor there. It's on to more cogent points. Verse 16 says, now when the last of these fighting men among the people had died, the Lord said to me, today you are to pass by the region of Moab. When you come to the Ammonites, do not harass them or provoke them to war, for I will not give you possession of any land belonging to them. Now, the key thing there is, when the last of these fighting men had died, God had said, remember, they refused to go into the promised land. God said, all these people of fighting age over, they will die. And they did. God's judgment was carried out. You need to seriously think, God will not judge. Yes, he will. The Bible is very clear that God judges. So it is foolishness to assume otherwise. Anyway, if we go to 24, it says, get on to the defeat of the Sihon, king of Heshbon. It says, set out across the Arnon Gorge, verse 24. See, I've given it into your hands, Sihon the Amorite, king of Heshbon, and his country. So we now get the lands which God has, or starting to get to places which God has given to them. Now, right, so God has told them, I've given this land to you. Now let's look how the battle, or how things pan out. Verse 26 says, I, that's Moses, sent messengers to Zion, king of Heshbon, offering peace and saying, let us pass through your country. We'll stay on the main road and we will not turn aside to the right or to the left. Send us food or to eat and water to drink for their price and silver. Only let us pass on foot, as the descendants of Esau who lived in Seir and the Moabites who lived in Ar did for us. So this land has been promised to them, but they're adopting a reasonable approach. They're not being presumptuous. They're not just going in gun-ho. And the ways in which they treated the Moabites and the Edomites showed that they were trustworthy, so that they were being reasonable. And in verse 30 it says, but Zion, king of Heshbon, refused to let us pass through. And then there was a battle. The Israelites won, and verse 34 it says they left no survivors. They completely destroyed them. Or if you look in the footnote in the NIV, it says devoted to destruction. Men, women and children. And this is one of the sort of difficult concepts in Deuteronomy, particularly in Joshua, where more of it's fulfilled. And they get accused of genocide. And I don't fully understand the issue. I can see why we find it difficult. But they're not acting on their own behalf. Is one point to notice. They're acting on behalf of God, judging people. And the way these people behaved, they were not nice, quite quaint villagers who had their own religious customs. They sacrificed children. They're, put it bluntly, a bunch of evil gits. Now, that's one thing to note. The second thing to note is this sort of stuff does not apply whatsoever now, no any time. In fact, none of it happened again essentially after the time of Joshua, mostly, and definitely in the time of the Gospel, time of the New Testament. But apart from that, I can't really say a great deal on it. There are books on the subject. Paul Copan has written one. Some of it I agree with, some of it I don't. The one thing I will say, the wrong attitude is, God wouldn't do that. God wouldn't command them to do that. Well, that's not what the Bible says. So that's not really a satisfactory solution. But anyway, we'll be on to chapter 3 soon. There's about 3 or 4 chapters of Moses preparing the people. And then we get on to what I think is the more interesting stuff in Deuteronomy.